Alright, so this is a saving and loading example that I'm going to upload to my GitHub, so you can find the find the code there. I'm just going to demonstrate it real quick. So we can either load a game or do a new game. We'll make a new one. We got to enter a name. We're going to call it Sam, and then we're going to choose the orc class. So we start in our first scene, and we can move around using the up, down, left, right arrows, and then we can save, and we save the position of the player among some other things. So we'll go ahead and stop it, and then if I run it again, we load our game, we choose Sam, you can see we're in the same position. We can also change the scenes and then move him over here somewhere in this beautiful meadow, save it again, and then we will exit. We'll run it, and we'll go ahead and load Sam again, and you can see we're still in this meadow, in this beautiful little world right here. So what we're doing is saving and loading to a JSON file. So if I open up our data folder here, we can see we have sam.json, and if I open this up, we just have basically a dictionary in here. So we have a class, a level, a name, a picture, and a position, and we just update all of these and then save it to this file and then access it whenever we need to. So it kind of seems a little tedious at first, but it works pretty well for this setup. On this start screen here, all I have is just this backdrop, which it's a color rect, and then I have a loading screen that we can bring up on top of that, and then also the new game screen where we have all of our options there. And I'm just hiding and showing these depending on what we need to do. So past that, if we go to our scripts, I have a game manager script, which is an autoload. So I'm auto-loading this script, and that is the one that is importing our data and updating our data, because that will we can use that to store data in between scenes. So we can have variables here that I can use in the next scene, and we can store data in this game manager script instead of keeping it in our meadow scene or our castle scene, and that's going to work out really well for us. So to make an autoloader, you would have to say file, new script, and then we would just type in autoload example. And it's better to do it that way because you don't want to create it through a node like this. If you do it that way, then you're just creating a script for that node, which we don't want to do. You want to create a file that isn't attached to a node over here. So we have the autoload thing here, and then it's just like any other script. We would type our code in here. I will print hello, we'll save it, and then I'll close that back up. I'll go to project settings, autoload, and then we look up that script. I think I called it autoload example, open. We add it, and our game manager's here, our autoload example is here, so we know that's going to run when we run the game. So now I'll just demonstrate that. Don't need any of that. We can see hello ran. So that's how autoloads work. So now I'm just going to walk through the flow of the program when we have this screen and we press new game, and then we enter a name here and we select one of these classes. What we are actually doing is those are buttons. Each one of those pictures are buttons, and we hook them up here, and once they are pressed, they send a binding with them. This one binds orc. You can see this one binds warrior. It's just a string that we send to this script here, and then this is the function it acts on. So we send our string in here. We are the blank class, so we can say we are the orc class, and then this player info here is a dictionary that we have created in this script that we will use to send all of our info to be saved to our JSON file. We're going to send this to our game manager in a second. So we have our player info, we create the key class, and we just have the class variable we passed in. We have our name, which is the name we're getting from the text edit on our Godot game. That was where we input our name. The first scene is the castle scene, is the one that we're going to load first because that's level 1. And then the position is 0, 0 because I want to start at the origin of that scene. We then hit the create new game function, and I use that to assign a picture so we can dynamically assign our sprite to our kinematic body. We then call the game manager new game, and we pass a self right here is referring to this control, so it refers to the scene because we have to delete it from the tree because we're entering a new level, so we don't need this one anymore. And then player info is the dictionary we made down here, so we're just passing that in so that we can we can save our data and update everything. Alright, so from here we say we go to the game manager new game, so I'll pull that up, game manager, and then we're looking for the new game right here. So we're passing in the start screen and the player info. We have these right here, current player name and current player picture, and those are just variables we define at the very top here because we need to reference them a few times throughout some of these functions, and it's easier than trying to pass them all around. So then we just have to create a new file, and this is the way to do that in Godot. So we create a new file object. We then have a path that we want to use. I'm using the name from our dictionary, so it would have been Sam, and then we're appending .json to the end, so we're making it a JSON file. We then open that path with this here, and we have to do file write read, and that means if the file doesn't exist, it's going to write and create that file, and if it is there, it's going to write over that file. So we then have we say use info to JSON player info. So it's basically converting our dictionary object here into a JSON format that we can then store into our open file object. A little confusing, but basically you're just changing the form of it to a JSON form. And then we close the file. You always have to remember to close files or you can have a lot of problems. We then change scenes, which is another function we have up here. Alright, so next we go to the change scenes function. We pass in the start screen and the screen that we want to go to next. So we have that here, scene from, scene to. We take the scene we want to go to and we load it, and we save that as a variable next level. We then take next level and instance it, and we save that as use level. We then add child to the auto-loaded node that is on the tree, that is the script. We append a child of the instance level onto that, and then we take the scene that we just came from, the start screen, and we queue free it. So all the variables are now saved in a JSON file, and some are saved in this script here, but we don't need the start screen anymore, so we get rid of it. Alright, so in terms of where we are in the progression of the game, this is where we are. We are right at the castle scene, and we are moving around. So now our options are to change scenes, or we can hit save. So we'll check out save first. We printed out some data down here. So we will just go to the castle scene, and then when we hit the save button, which is this one, we do this function here, save game. We create a save dictionary. We get the player, and then we get the player's position, and then we add that to our dictionary with the key of position, and then we also update the level with the key of level. We then call game manager.update info, and we pass it the dictionary that we've appended our information to. So we will repeat that filling out a dictionary and then passing it to this update info. That's basically how we're going to save all of our data. And while we're here, I'll just go ahead and cover it. The second button, the change scene button, does basically the exact same thing. Save dictionary, except we don't need to save the position of the player because we're going to be put at the origin of the meadow scene. So we just say update the info and we change the level, and that's all we need to pass through. And then we also just use the change scenes again, and we pass in ourself as the old one and the meadow scene as the new one. So let's go ahead and explore the update info game manager function. So we'll go back to our game manager, and then we will go to the update info. And what we can see here, we pass in the dictionary that we want to save. We then take the current player name and we use that to get the file path for our JSON. We make a variable file and we create a new file object. We also create a variable for data here, but we don't assign anything to it. We then use this check if the file path exists. We create a variable named error. And the way file.open works is it will return a value, and if the value is okay, then that means the file can be read and everything's good. If it returns anything else but okay, then you're not doing good. Your file path is wrong. So if it returns okay, we then take the data variable and we assign this file.get as text parse JSON. So what that's going to do for us is just take data and make it a dictionary containing everything. So it'll take our data here, and let me just open this up. It'll take this and place it into a dictionary for us. Cancel. So we now have data as a usable dictionary, and we close the file object. We then loop through all of the keys in our save dictionary, and if our data dictionary that we just pulled from the JSON does not have those keys, we will add them to the data dictionary. So that means if it doesn't have a position, we will take the position from the save dictionary and add it in there. And so we also check the values in the dictionary. Let me pull this up. So we go through each one of these from the save file, and if we have a position, we first check to make sure it has this key. If it doesn't have this key, we go ahead and write it from our save file. And then this loop here checks to make sure the value is the same as we're passing in from our save file. So if it's not, then we rewrite the value anyway. So that basically covers our bases and makes sure we can add new data and rewrite any data that's old and needs to be rewritten. Close without saving, yes. So then we create a new file object, and we are going to use this to overwrite our current JSON. So we have everything is in this data dictionary that we need, so we then get the file path, same file path that we had up here, and we say we open that, and with write read we say use info, and then the same to JSON technique that we used down here, storing that in a variable, and then using the player file.store line use info, basically placing all of our dictionary info into a JSON format for us. So that is the updating feature. So the only thing that we have left to really explore would be the load game and how this populates. I'll just take a second to talk about the castle scene structure. So all I really had is I have the player without a texture, and I guess I should show how that updates. So if I go to our player scene here, it's just a kinematic body with sprite and a collision shape. We really don't need the collision shape, but we're keeping it. We just have a speed and a velocity, and then this right here, I literally just copied and pasted this from Kids Can Code. Just look up top-down movement. It's, you know, up, down, left, right, velocity.x, velocity.y, plus equals, minus equals. And then this is the function right here. Well, not really function, but this is a script that is updating our sprite. So if we look at our sprite and we don't have a texture, then we tell our game manager and we say set sprite and we pass in a copy of the sprite itself. So if we go to our game manager, you gotta go to scripts over here, game manager, open this up for you, set sprite. So we take the sprite that we got from our player and we say that texture is equal to the current player pick, which remember we set when we created a new game. Current player pick is equal to the picture that we passed in the player info dictionary. So that will give us the correct sprite. And you could do that for a 3D model or whatever you're trying to do, different animations, but I just have the one picture of that one sprite. I just figured I better clear that up before anyone gets confused. So the last feature to explain, I think, is the load feature and how this self-populates. So I'll go ahead and take a look at that. Let's open that up. So we got the populate loading screen, and this is on the control right here. So this is just on the main scene. As soon as we play the game, it's going to run this ready. And where's that at? Populate loading screen. Okay. So here we are creating a new directory. We're just creating an array here that we're going to fill with all of the possible files that we can have. So we're just saying directory open. This is very similar to opening files, but it's just a little different because we're opening a directory, and then we use this file name equals directory.get next. We use a while loop, and while file name is not equal to nothing, so it's gonna keep going until it hits the end of the file and it returns nothing. And all we're doing is, as it's going through this loop, it is appending all the files in this folder, all the file in our data folder to this array right here. So then once we have that, we just do a simple for loop. So for all the files in our available load array, we create buttons, and then we connect those buttons here to our a function on ourself, meaning this script, and we pass in the file name of the button. So what that looks like is having the file names be what the button says. So I could probably pretty this up a little bit and make the buttons a little different. And to have this work, you also have to have a let's go to our loading screen. I'm using a VBox container. So if I didn't have that, the nodes, I'm not sure, they would probably stack all up on top of each other, but the VBox container separates them out all on top of each other. So make sure to have that in there, and I'm creating them as children of that. And so like we said, that button is connected to load new game, and let's go ahead and look at that function. And this just adds, that's just adding it to the container. So load new game, we go up here. So from here we go to the load player data. Oh, game manager load player data, and all we do is we use the player name to open up the file path for our JSON, and we need to check some variables. If we do have a level key in our dictionary, then we will load that level. If we don't, then we will give it the default castle level to load. We will instance that level and then add it as a child of the autoloader and get rid of the current scene. Basically, we're doing the same thing as our change scenes functions. We're just doing it in here because it's a little more convenient to do it that way. And then we set the player's position by using our data that we acquired from opening the file. And yes, we made sure to close the file, and we really don't need this. I don't know why that's there. But yeah, so we have the position set, and that should be everything we need to load. And really, if you have more variables, you just need to account for them in here when you load the file, and same as when you save. But the way we've done it with this update function, as long as you pass in a dictionary that has keys, it's really going to take all that information and store it. So you can pass as many keys as you want, and you can save as many things and check for as many things as you need. It's pretty dynamic. So again, that's the pretty much the whole project. And yeah, I guess have fun out there. You know, whether it's in a meadow or in a castle.